So, when I hit 50,000 followers on Instagram, I did a post that was the 50 greatest fighters of all time. And by far the most controversial take that I had on this list was that Charles Oliveira was a better fighter all time than Khabib Nurmagomedov. Although this list has changed a bit since the first post, like I would probably move Islam up one, move Volk up, maybe move Silva down. There's a couple people. Maybe next time I'd put BJ Penn on the list. But although my list has changed a bunch, my opinion on this matter hasn't changed at all. So Tony has died, will be making a case as to why Oliveira is a better fighter all time than Khabib. Now don't forget to like, subscribe, comment what you guys want to see next, because I was trying to think of some content to make, and I feel like the best content to make would be the content that you guys want to see. So y'all let me know what videos y'all want to see next, and let's jump straight into it. Starting with the most important aspect of when you're doing someone's GOAT list, which is resume. So we have to look at who has wins over who, and how good were those people when they beat them. So Khabib beat Dustin Poirier. You know who else beat Dustin Poirier? Charles Oliveira, and he beat him by submission. Khabib beat Gaethje. Well, Oliveira beat Gaethje as well, by submission as well. Now, Khabib's second best win is Conor. I do think that both of their best wins are Dustin. So Khabib's second best win is Conor. Well, I don't know. Conor's a better featherweight. Dustin's a better lightweight. We can all agree on that. So if we're talking about lightweight legacy, then Dustin's better. But if we're talking all-time legacy, Conor's better. But Khabib's best win is Conor, right? I think the Conor McGregor win gets overrated a lot when we're talking about Khabib, bro. Because this isn't the same Conor that starched Aldo, same Aldo that beat Max Holloway, beat Jeremy Stevens. Not Jeremy Stevens. He didn't fight Jeremy Stevens. Who beat Chad Mendez, who beat Poirier. This isn't the same Conor who beat all of them. This was a multi-millionaire, slipping in pink sheets and satin, sipping the champagne on the yacht, Conor McGregor. Multi-millionaire Conor McGregor. And this Conor was also always a great stylistic matchup for Khabib. He got submitted by fucking Nate Diaz. So I think people overrate the Conor McGregor win because he was coming off a big layoff, and his style had changed a lot too. He was no longer in his karate, classic karate stance Conor. This motherfucker was in a boxing stance during this fight, which is not the same Conor that fought Jose Aldo. So I think that win gets a little overrated. And I think a win for Oliveira that gets underrated is his win over Tony Ferguson. Now, yes, Tony did go on to lose every single fight since he fought Oliveira. And at this stage in his career, Tony was not completely washed. This Tony that fought Oliveira was only 2 fights in, and he still dropped Gaethje. He still had some competitive moments against Dariush and Oliveira. Saying that this win over Tony is the same as the Nate Diaz win over Tony, or the Patty win, or the Bobby Green win over Tony, it's just ludicrous. So I think the Oliveira-Tony win gets a little underrated. But am I saying that the Conor win and the Tony win are equal? No. What I'm saying is that you take the Tony win and you add it with the 2 Michael Chandler wins, and the first Michael Chandler win is a lot more valuable than the second one coming off the layoff, but the first Michael Chandler win is still a really good version of Michael Chandler, one that beat Dan Hooker, who's top 5 now, one that beat Eddie Alvarez, beat Benson Henderson, So I think that the win over Michael Chandler the first time, plus the shitty win over Michael Chandler the second time, plus the Tony win, I think that you could definitely say that win is better than the Conor win. Which brings me to my next point, which is RDA. So, yeah, Khabib beat Prime RDA, which is a really, really good win. But RDA was on a 5-fight win streak, and Oliveira beat someone like Dariush, who was on a 6-fight win streak. So I don't know how those... I think you could say that those wins are very comparable. Like, who hasn't beat RDA that's an elite fighter, and who hasn't beat Beneil Dariush that's an elite fighter? So I feel like those wins are very similar in terms of legacy. Like, obviously, RDA has better wins all time, but I feel like, those are a very similar win. Stylistically, like, good for both guys, and yeah, that's what I kind of see. So, then once we get past RDA for Khabib, the quality just starts to drop off a cliff, bro. You got Barboza, who was pretty decent, but who hasn't beat Barboza. You got Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson is one of Khabib's best wins. Iaquinta. Then you start getting to people like Gleason Tibau, bro. So that's another kind of point that I'm trying to make is that after the top 4 wins, Dustin, Gaethje, Conor, RDA, his wins really start to drop off a cliff. And honestly, they drop off a cliff after Conor, because RDA isn't like an elite legacy win. You know what I mean? So, but you got Oliveira, who arguably Arman Tsarukyan, like I scored the fight for Arman, but if you scored the fight for Oliveira, like it makes complete sense. If you like, cause submissions count for the scoring criteria, you could give that 3rd round to Oliveira. But you know, Arman also got saved by the bell in that fight too. So, and he beat Kevin Lee. He's beaten a lot of people at lightweight as well. You know, Jim Miller. So, we have very similar resumes here, but I do believe that Oliveira's resume barely edges out Khabib's resume. Like just win for win, who has better wins, who has a better legacy. I think that Oliveira, like we could say that Conor is a better win than Tony, but Tony is a better lightweight than Conor. So this is, if we're talking just lightweight, I think it makes sense to have Oliveira over Khabib. So let's move on to the next point, which is losses. Everyone likes to talk about losses, like Oliveira has 10 losses, therefore, you know, he's so much better. I mean, Khabib is so much better than Oliveira because he's, you know, he's never lost. But look how many pullouts Khabib has. Khabib has 10 pullouts, and any one of those pullouts could have been a loss. And these aren't just pullouts in regular 3-rounders. No, these are title fight pullouts. Pulled out of a fight against RDA. He pulled out of a fight against Max Holloway twice. He pulled out of the Tony Ferguson fight 5 times. He pulled out of the fight with Tony Ferguson 5 times, which brings me to my other point, which is that Khabib never fought a grappler. You look, Oliveira fought everyone that was ever put in front of him, including people that were bad stylistic matchups for him, like Islam and Arman. And, you know, he fought everybody put in front of him, and Khabib never fought someone that could give him problems on the ground, who could match him on that level. And here's something else I like to think about. People like to call Oliveira a quitter for tapping his strikes, but Khabib is literally the one who fucking quit the sport before he could get a hard fight. So how can you call Oliveira a quitter when Khabib literally quit before he fought anyone that could give him problems on the ground? You know? Like, that's a big thing. Oliveira is also a better finisher than Khabib. He has 20 finishes. I'm pretty sure there's a stats like out of 34 of his wins, 32 of them are finishes. It's something like that. But Khabib only has 8 finishes. Look how many submissions Oliveira has. His jiu-jitsu is just on another level. 16 subs versus 5 submissions. And here's another point that I want to bring up. Look how much longer Oliveira has been in the UFC. He got into the UFC in 2010, 2 years before Khabib, and is still fighting to this day. Khabib went from 2012 to 2020, only had 13 fights in 8 years, which is crazy. Like, if you're in the UFC for 8 years, you only have 13 fights, that means you're ducking. You're picking and choosing, you know? You're only fighting when it's favorable to you versus Oliveira. He's fighting everybody, anywhere, anytime. Also, another point I have to make is that his first 16 fights were literally, like, here's an example. When Oliveira lost to Cowboy Cerrone, when he was, like, young, I think it was in 2011 when they fought, Khabib was fighting a guy named Ashot Shashian, who is 0-2. Literally fighting taxi drivers. Khabib is literally patting his record against janitors, as Oliveira is fighting people that are still in the promotion to this day, like Jim Miller and Clay Guida. He's like, one of his losses is to Max Holloway. Max Holloway is one of the greatest fighters of all time. Khabib never fought him. What would have happened if Khabib fought Max Holloway? You don't think Max Holloway would have stood a chance? You don't think that Tony Ferguson, like, I think Khabib would have beaten Tony, but, like, there's still the chance that he could have lost, got submitted by Tony. Khabib has 10 pullouts, man. And not everyone can get wins handed to them on the regional scene. So, yeah, Oliveira might have 10 losses, but they're all to UFC fighters where Khabib's wins pre-UFC are just chumps, bro. Here's something else people like to make. That, oh, Oliveira won the belt off of Michael Chandler, man. He sucks. Dude, Khabib won the belt off of number 13 ranked Iaquinta, bro. Like, how can you say that? That's even, like, it's definitely the same scenario. Iaquinta went on to lose to Bobby Green after he fought Khabib. You know, that's who Khabib won the belt off of. So, If you want to say that the Gaethje weight miss or the Michael Chandler title defense weren't or damaging to his legacy, look who Khabib was fighting before. Yeah, here's one final point that I want to make. We all would agree that Anderson Silva is probably better than Khabib, right? I think almost all of us can agree with that. There's probably some people out there that still think, no, Khabib's better than Anderson, man. No, bro. Anderson Silva has 11 losses. So if you can agree that Anderson Silva is better, then I think we can agree that losses aren't as an important factor on someone's legacy than we think. It's what you do in your prime. What do you do when you're at the top of the sport? I feel like that's what's important when you're determining someone's legacy. So if we can agree on that, then I think that we can look past the losses thing, and then we just look at straight resume, what each person did in their prime. And then when we look at that, it's no question that Charles Oliveira is a better fighter than... Well, it's not... No, okay, I say no question. If you say Khabib is better than Charles, look at this. I have Khabib at 16 and Charles at 14. Literally neck and neck. I think that you can make the argument that Khabib's better, but I think that if you look at my criteria for making a GOAT list, I think Oliveira is better than Khabib all time. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. I'll be replying to all the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.